joined now by Richard Tait, who's a former member of the BBC Trust. A very, very good morning. Oh, sorry, afternoon to you, Richard.
Hi, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. I want to talk about some new guidelines that have been, editorial guidelines that have been updated and put out by the broadcaster to their staff, so it's production staff and reporters and newsreaders, and they have been told they must represent unpalatable and offensive views, even if they disagree with them. Minority views, even if some people find them offensive. They're reminded their impartial output may require the inclusion of opinions which some communities or groups may argue ought not to be included because they find them unpalatable or offensive. Now, this comes after years of the cancel culture where certain topics just weren't even touched, even though other broadcasters and other media have been talking about them. But are you as amazed as I am, as a former member of the BBC Trust, that journalists at the BBC, our state-funded broadcaster, feel they have to be told that they have to be impartial and that sometimes they're going to have to put on views that some people might not like?
Well, I think most BBC journalists know that already. That's always been, you're quite right, it's always been the rules of the game, which is that you leave your personal views and your personal prejudices at the front door when you go into the newsroom, and that applies to ITN and Sky as much as it applies to the BBC. I think it's more a reflection of the way we now live and popular culture. That you're right, we've now got to a stage where there is a cancel culture around. What's different from a few years ago is that whereas in the past people would complain, why should you have that view? I don't agree with that view, you're biased. They'll now say, not only should you not have that view, you should ban those people from ever appearing again.
Yeah.
And if you don't have them, if you have them on, immediately we know you're biased. And that's a very difficult environment for broadcasters because, particularly the BBC, everyone pays to the BBC. Everyone has the right to have their views represented.
So they get the flak.
With credit.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think the BBC aren't a victim of the cancel culture. They are part of the cancel culture. I know a number of people, and I'm pretty sure I'm included, judging by the invitations I have got in the past and then you don't get, and you know what the point of difference is, you know, if you have certain views on whether or not you think trans women are women, they're not. Whether you think that climate change is the biggest disaster facing the world and needs to be tackled by, you know, ruining everyone's economy and everyone's lives. Whether you think that mass uncontrolled immigration might be a bit of a problem. Whether we should talk about grooming gangs. Even going back to, you know, 2016, talking about Brexit. It is very obvious to me, having done a lot of work at the BBC over the years, just, you know, going in as a pundit, how incredibly biased most people, not all, most people are working at the BBC in terms of their views, their reaction to that, and their treatment of people like that. And there's no doubt at all that people's views have been censored. I mean, you know, but it's by the BBC out of choice.
Well, I think there's a difficulty with that argument is that if you talk to people on the left, they'll say exactly the same.
Yeah, but it's whether or not they can back it up with facts.
If you talk to supporters of Hamas, and if you talk to, I mean, one of the issues we now have in newsrooms is, and we're having it in newspaper newsrooms as well as in broadcast newsrooms, is that people are very, very upset and wound up, understandably, by what they're seeing in the Middle East, but in different ways. And there are people who are passionate defenders of the right of Israel to defend itself and equally passionate defenders of the cause of a Palestinian independent state.
But there's a difference because the left
playing
wants
itself
to,
out in newsrooms.
No, but there's a very big. I mean, I don't think that debate's going on so much. I think it's actually far more on one side in the BBC. But the point is that people on the right haven't been largely demanding that we don't hear those views and that those people are cancelled or thrust out of the BBC or any other, or not to be heard, whereas we have heard that from the left.
Well, yes, but the BBC actually hasn't been guilty of cancel culture. I mean, it was a very senior BBC executive actually told a select committee a couple of years ago, you know, we don't believe in cancel culture. I mean,
they do. Right. I'm sorry, they do.
Well,
people get here's the thing. Here's what's changed. Justin Webb, Radio 4, refers to trans women, i.e. males, he says. He was chastised. He was formally formally chastised for that by BBC disciplinary body. Maxine Coxall, the BBC news reader, who the other day said, reporting a report about heat problems for the aged pregnant people, corrected it to women with a roll of the eyes. She's been supported by the BBC, but she wouldn't have been 2 years ago. She would have also been told off for that.
I'm not sure about that.
Yes,
I know.
I am very sure about that.
I know because I have a lot of my people who work in the BBC newsroom. A lot of my I'm a professor now at Cardiff University. A lot of my students go and work in the newsroom. I know these arguments take place, but it's much more, I'm afraid, much more complicated than you think from your perspective. I mean, you have very strong view. I respect your very strong views. Very strong views are part of democratic society. But I think there is, I mean, if you look at, say, gender, which has been a very, very difficult issue for all broadcasters.
Well, it has. I mean, it's not. It's a really easy issue.
And the use of language, Julia, we both know it. We both have to be so careful how we use language, because otherwise we're going to get pigeonholed.
We should use biological and fact. We should be biologically factual language. It's really simple.
Yeah, but we're all conscious that what we say, people are looking at and saying, oh, well, that's what she thinks, that's what he thinks. I mean, I would actually defend, I mean, the BBC's journalism on gender, which is a really difficult area. I mean, Hannah Barnes was the person who did the investigation into the Tavistock for Newsnight.
Oh, no, can I point out?
No, Stephen Nolan did the investigation into Stonewall for a podcast.
Richard, this stuff had been investigated by numerous other people, like Helen Joyce.
I look at a piece that I thought was a good bit of journalism.
The BBC only reported it once their own people had done those reports. That Women's Hour ignored Helen Joyce and her book on trans and all these issues, saying pretty much exactly the same stuff printed years earlier. It's been completely censored.
But you can't dismiss pieces of journalism.
No, that journalism was great. It was very late to the party, and it was only accepted because it was done by BBC people.
You can't produce that sort of journalism in an institutionally corrupted system.
Shall we say that other people, the dam had burst. The dam had burst by that point, and it was safe to cover it, which was why they finally did it.
Hannah Barnes was 21. And Stonewall, I think, was 21. I mean, this is 2 or 3 years. This is before.
I can assure you there have been plenty of investigations. All of that information was well known already before then. I can absolutely assure you. I speak to a lot of BBC people who are very worried about being able to speak their full minds, even in the office, let alone what they can say on air. Time is against us. I'd love you to come on again, though. Richard Tait, former BBC Trust member. Big thanks to Claire Pearsall joining us for all of that. Just, if you want to say 1 second, you've got like 5 seconds on that. If you want to throw in a tuppence worth.
The BBC, you can have strong views as long as you tread carefully, say nothing offensive about anybody ever, and that'll be it.
I don't have strong views.